Well, I'm going to begin, David. I mean, not only do you obviously serve as the leading actor in this film, but you're the producer too. I was just wondering what it was about this initial story that attracted you and appealed to you so much that you wanted to become so heavily invested in it.
Well, you know, the story itself is incredible. I mean, it's one of those life is stranger than fiction stories in terms of Brian Nichols, who I play in the film, breaking out of a courthouse jail, killing 4 people, and then taking Ashley Smith hostage for 7 hours. But faith also plays a part in the film, and I think that sometimes when that's the case, those stories can become quite heavy-handed and preachy, if you like. And even though I'm a Christian myself, I'm not really interested in bashing people over the head with an agenda. And so from that point of view, even though you could call the film a faith-based film, I wanted it to have a degree of subtlety that made it feel more of a universal story.
Of course, you've gone from playing one of the most kind of peaceful people who's ever lived in Martin Luther King to going on to playing someone who's in prison for life for murdering 4 people. I mean, how do you make that transition kind of mentally to go from one project to the next?
I'd be lying if I said it was easy, but that's also why it's attractive. You know, I personally, as an actor, am drawn to projects and roles where I'm not certain I can do it. You know, I didn't look at Brian Nichols and think, oh yeah, I can do that in my sleep. I knew it would take a lot of work to get myself into the right headspace to play him truthfully, even physically. He's so, you know, he's a much bigger guy than me. I had to do that kind of work as well. But I really enjoy the challenge, because I do believe that as you challenge yourself as an actor, it has the same effect on the audience.
And talking of challenges, I mean, what was it like to find the human being within the role of Brian? I mean, because I imagine you have to find sympathy for him to be able to portray him.
That's exactly right. You can't play a character who you are judging simultaneously, because you are effectively outside of the character, and it's impossible to tell the truth of the character while you're doing that. It was not easy though, because what he did is undeniably reprehensible. There's no way of getting around it, and he's serving the requisite punishment for that. But he's someone's son, you know, he's a human being, and that's why Ashley Smith didn't become his 5th victim on that day. There was something that she was able to elicit in him by way of humanity that stopped him dead in his tracks, and so that's also what the film explores. And
were you able to meet him at all? And if not, then how did you go about kind of finding out who he is? Did you meet people that he knew, his family members perhaps?
I couldn't meet him because he's serving multiple life sentences, and I think he's only allowed to see his parents, and he's been in solitary confinement also for the entirety of his imprisonment thus far. But I did spend a lot of time with Ashley Smith, who remembers it like it was yesterday, who also wrote a book called Unlikely Angel that charts these events. So she was my primary source of information.
And did you know if there's any way of Brian seeing this movie? Would you want him to see the movie?
That's a good question. I don't know that he's allowed to even watch screens, but I do know his mother told me a couple of weeks ago that he read an interview I'd given for the promotion of the film and felt inspired by it and comforted by it. You know, it's a tricky one, because I also spoke to his mum and I said, how is he doing? And he said, I am where I'm supposed to be. You know, which is kind of a chilling thing for someone who's 23 hours of every given day he's on his own. So yeah.
And on paper, I mean, you may be more likely to associate yourself with the role of the detective, and then Michael K. Williams with the role of Brian. Right. I was wondering, was that a part of the appeal for you as well, to show people your range as an actor and to try something sort of completely different? I mean, it must keep it sort of quite fresh for you.
100%. I mean, and again, that was by design. You know, Michael K. Williams is also someone who people perceive in a certain way on the basis of the roles he's played, and I really enjoy it when actors get to stretch. And the truth of the matter is, in the same way that the film exhibits how life is stranger than fiction, you can't judge a book by its cover, you know, because Brian Nichols was someone who had a 6-figure salary. He was not someone who had lived an underprivileged life up until the point where he did these things. And so, again, you know, I wanted to play that role, you know, to show those elements, but also because I hadn't done anything like it before. And I always like to think of these roles as a dare to myself. Can I do it?
And I mean, Captive is a film that has a real degree of hope to it. And I mean, there is a sort of sense of redemption to this tale. Was it quite difficult to strike a balance between being quite hopeful and at the same time always bearing in mind the fact there are 4 victims here who lost their lives, to kind of strike that balance?
It is. And, you know, for me, a big belief of mine is that the light shines brightest in the darkness. You know, there was abject hopelessness in this story. These 2 people had come to a dead end. You're thinking there is no way anything good can come out of this circumstance, but it did. You know, Ashley's life was turned around for the better from this, and we all, part of life is death, part of life is pain, part of life is hardship and difficulty. But I think what marks us out as human beings is how we push through these difficulties towards hope. And hopefully, for me anyway, that's what the film also symbolizes.
Just finally, very, very quickly, I mean, Nina's obviously one coming out soon, which I'm really excited about. I saw the documentary recently, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I don't really recall Clifton Henderson from the documentary. I was wondering who he was to Nina and how he fits into her story.
Clifton Henderson came into Nina's life later on. He was an assistant to her, went on to manage her in terms of her music later on. And they had a very complex relationship, really, as it pertained to business, as it pertained to their personal relationship. And so that's what we wanted to explore with the film. It's a very unconventional love story.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!